I'm a 28-year-old guy. It all started when I was 14. I wasn't a bad kid, just struggling in school. Math gave me a hard time and English wasn't much better. My parents, both successful lawyers, couldn't understand why their son wasn't acing every subject like they had. "You're just not trying hard enough," my father would say, his voice dripping with disappointment. My mother wasn't any better. "Maybe if you spent less time on that computer and more time studying, you'd actually amount to something," she'd sneer. I tried explaining that I was doing my best, that I just needed some extra help, but they wouldn't listen. To them, anything less than straight A's was unacceptable. The pressure was crushing me. Then came that fateful day in 9th grade when report cards were handed out. My palms were sweaty as I opened the envelope, praying for a miracle. But there it was, staring back at me, C's and D's across the board. I remember walking home that day, my feet feeling like lead. Maybe if I explained again, showed them I was really trying, they'd understand. But as soon as I walked through the door, I knew it was hopeless. My father's face turned an alarming shade of purple as he snatched the report card from my hands. "What the hell is this?" he roared. My mother appeared behind him, her lips pressed into a thin line of disapproval. "We didn't raise you to be a failure," she hissed. I tried to speak, to defend myself, but my father cut me off. "No excuses, we've given you everything and this is how you repay us, by embarrassing us?" Tears stunned my eyes as I pleaded. "I'm trying, I swear. Maybe if I got a tutor." "A tutor?" My mother laughed coldly. "Why should we waste more money on you? You're clearly not worth the investment." What happened next is still a blur. There was more yelling, accusations flying. My father called me worthless, a disappointment. My mother said I was ruining their reputation. And then, the words that changed everything. "If you can't meet our standards, then you don't deserve to live under our roof." I thought they were bluffing. Surely they wouldn't actually kick out their own son. But an hour later, I found myself standing on the front porch, a hastily packed bag at my feet, the door slamming behind me. I spent that first night wandering the streets in a daze, unable to process what had happened. How could my own parents do this to me? Where was I supposed to go? What was I supposed to do? The next few weeks were a nightmare. I slept on park benches, in alleyways, anywhere I could find shelter. I was terrified, hungry, and completely alone. I thought about going to the police, but the shame of admitting my parents had abandoned me was too much to bear. One particularly cold night, huddled under a bridge, I hit rock bottom. I was ready to give up, to let the darkness take me. But then, something inside me snapped. A tiny spark of defiance ignited in my chest. "No," I whispered to myself, "I won't let them win. I'll show them, I'll show everyone." From that moment on, I was determined to not just survive, but thrive. I started by finding a local shelter that offered meals and a place to sleep. It wasn't much, but it was a start. The staff there were kind, and for the first time in weeks, I felt a glimmer of hope. One of the volunteers noticed my interest in computers and told me about a free coding workshop at the local library. I jumped at the chance. Those classes became my lifeline, my escape from the harsh reality of my situation. I threw myself into learning everything I could about programming. While other kids my age were hanging out with friends or playing sports, I was hunched over library computers, absorbing knowledge like a sponge. The more I learned, the more confident I became. By the time I was 16, I had taught myself enough to start taking on small freelance jobs. It wasn't much, building simple websites for local businesses, fixing people's computers, but it was enough to rent a tiny, run-down apartment. It wasn't much, but it was mine. I kept pushing myself, learning more advanced programming languages, staying up late into the night working on projects. My grades had suffered when I was living on the streets, but now that I had stability, I was able to focus on school again. I threw myself into my studies with the same intensity I applied to coding. By senior year, I had turned things around. My grades were solid, and I had built up an impressive portfolio of coding projects. When it came time for college applications, I poured my heart into my essays, detailing my journey from homelessness to self-taught programmer. The day I received my acceptance letter to a prestigious tech university on a full scholarship was one of the happiest of my life. I had done it. I had proven my parents wrong. I wasn't worthless or stupid. I was capable of greatness. College was challenging, but after everything I'd been through, it felt like a breeze. I excelled in my classes and made connections with professors and fellow students who would later become invaluable to my career. During my junior year, I had an idea for a new app that would revolutionize how small businesses manage their inventory. I spent every free moment working on it, refining the code, perfecting the user interface. By the time I graduated, I had a fully functional prototype. With my degree in hand and my app ready to launch, I took a leap of faith. Instead of accepting job offers from tech giants, I decided to start my own company. It was terrifying, but I knew I had to bet on myself. The first year was tough. There were nights I thought I'd made a huge mistake, times when I considered giving up, but I remembered those cold nights on the streets, the determination that had got me this far. I refused to quit. Slowly but surely, things started to turn around. My app gained traction, attracting attention from investors. As word spread, more and more businesses signed up. By the time I turned 25, my company had grown beyond my wildest dreams. We were pulling in 7 figures annually, and I had a team of brilliant people working alongside me. I had done it. The scared, homeless kid who wasn't trying hard enough had built a multi-million-dollar tech company from scratch. I should have been on top of the world, but something was still missing. Despite my success, I had never reconnected with my parents. The wound they had inflicted was too deep, the betrayal too painful. I had made peace with the fact that they would never be a part of my life again, but fate, it seems, had other plans. It was at a tech conference in my hometown that my carefully constructed world came crashing down. I had just finished giving a keynote speech about my company's latest innovations when I spotted them in the crowd, my parents looking older but still as polished and put together as ever. My heart raced as they approached, plastering on fake smiles. "We're so proud of you, son," my father boomed, loud enough for those nearby to hear. "We always knew you had it in you." I stood there, frozen in disbelief. Were they seriously trying to take credit for my success, after everything they had done? My mother chimed in, her voice sickly sweet. "It just goes to show what tough love can do. Sometimes you have to be cruel to be kind." Something inside me snapped. All the pain, all the anger I had suppressed for years came bubbling to the surface. I couldn't let them rewrite history, couldn't let them pretend they had any part in my success. "Tough love," I said, my voice shaking. "Is that what you call kicking your 14-year-old son out onto the streets?" The fake smiles faltered. My father tried to laugh it off. "Oh, you're exaggerating. We just sent you to your aunt's for a while to straighten you out." "Liar," I shouted, not caring who heard. "I slept on park benches, I ate from dumpsters. Where was your tough love then?" A crowd had gathered, watching the drama unfold. My mother hissed, "Keep your voice down, you're making a scene." "No," I said, my voice growing stronger. "I won't be quiet, not anymore. Do you want to know how I really became successful? It wasn't because of you, it was in spite of you." And then I let it all out. Every painful detail, every sleepless night, every moment of despair and triumph. I told them about the shelter, about teaching myself to code, about clawing my way into college. "You didn't believe in me," I said, tears streaming down my face. "You threw me away like garbage. But I survived, I thrived, and I did it all on my own." The look of shock on their faces was almost comical. They sputtered, tried to defend themselves that the damage was done. People in the crowd were whispering, shooting disgusted looks their way. "I don't want your pride," I said, my voice steady now. "I don't want your approval. I want you to know that I succeeded, not because of your tough love, but because I'm stronger than you ever gave me credit for." With that, I turned and walked away, leaving them standing there, exposed and humiliated. The aftermath of that confrontation was intense. Word spread quickly through the tech community and beyond. Some people criticized me for airing my dirty laundry in public, but many more reached out with messages of support and shared their own stories of overcoming adversity. My parents tried to do damage control, claiming I was exaggerating or misremembering things. But I had evidence, old police reports from when I was reported as a runaway, records from the shelter where I had stayed. The truth was undeniable. In the weeks that followed, I received countless messages from young people who were inspired by my story. Kids who were struggling in school, feeling pressured by their parents' expectations, or dealing with their own experiences of homelessness. I realized I had an opportunity to make a real difference. I started a foundation to help homeless and at-risk youth, providing them with resources, mentorship, and opportunities to learn valuable skills like coding. It became my mission to ensure that no child would have to go through what I did. As for my parents, I haven't spoken to them since that day at the conference. Sometimes I wonder if they ever truly understood the impact of what they did, if they ever felt genuine remorse. But I've learned that I can't control their actions or feelings. I can only control my own. Looking back on my journey, from that terrified 14-year-old sleeping on park benches to the successful entrepreneur I am today, I'm filled with a mix of emotions. Pride in how far I've come, sadness for the child I was, and determination to use my experiences to help others. I won't pretend it's been easy. There are still nights when I wake up in a cold sweat, momentarily convinced I'm back on those streets. The trauma of what I went through will always be a part of me, but it no longer defines me. My story isn't just about success or revenge. It's about resilience, about finding strength in the darkest of times. It's about proving that your past doesn't have to dictate your future. And most importantly, it's about creating your own family, not of blood, but of people who truly support and believe in you. To anyone out there who's struggling, who feels alone or worthless, I want you to know you are stronger than you think. Your worth isn't determined by your grades, your parents' expectations, or anyone else's opinion of you. It's determined by your actions, your perseverance, and your ability to keep going, even when the world seems stacked against you. Success is the best revenge, they say, but I've learned that true success isn't about proving others wrong. It's about proving yourself right. It's about becoming the person you always knew you could be, despite the obstacles in your path. So here I am, 10 years after being kicked to the curb, running a successful company and helping others find their path. It wasn't the journey I expected, but it's made me who I am. And you know what? I wouldn't change a thing.